War is no longer distant for Russia. The fallout is visible at home. One image raises a recurring question. What is happening to Vladimir Putin's health, and why are his hands so often hidden or appearing digitally altered? A recent public meeting put that question back at the center. Cameras caught hands that looked swollen and sore with bulging veins. The slip matters because it follows years of tightly choreographed footage. It also arrives alongside new censorship moves. Mobile internet access has been cut in key areas, with St. Petersburg residents describing near total disruption. Together, these details suggest a wider strategy. Conceal weakness, control information, and hide the human cost of the war from the public. Public scrutiny of Putin's hands began early in the invasion. In March 2022, at a meeting with Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, Putin held the table edge the entire time. The grip never relaxed. The meeting was not short. That visual prompted medical speculation. Parkinson's was a common theory. Observers cited prior moments when his hands or legs seemed to shake. On its own, a firm grip on a table proves nothing, yet the consistency of the behavior made it notable. Each new appearance brought the same question. Why the grip? Why the careful framing? The pattern deepened a year later. A 10-minute video carried a different clue. Putin delivered a threat-heavy address about a missile he called Orishnik. The body moved, the head moved. The hands did not. Viewers pointed out that the hands appeared unnaturally still. Some suggested AI or CGI smoothing. The footage looked controlled to a fault. Instead, the hands looked edited. That choice kept the speculation alive. Against this backdrop, this week's meeting shifted the conversation again. The topic was vaping and youth health. The attendees included a senior health official. The content should have been routine. Instead, the hands dominated the post-event chatter. The same hands that were gripped or edited now looked inflamed. Reports described swelling and prominent veins. That led to fresh claims: cancer, Parkinson's, or another illness. One pointed explanation came from Anton Gerashchenko. He said Putin's body is failing because he is covered in blood up to his elbow for the killing in Ukraine. Stress is a simpler hypothesis. The promised 3-day operation has become a grinding war. Stress worsens any underlying condition. The outward signs now show up in close-ups. This would remain gossip if not paired with a second policy thread. The state has moved to restrict internet access. One region filed a formal notice. The internet service will be shut down until the end of the year. The order is local, not national. Even so, reports from elsewhere describe similar results. St. Petersburg, a city of nearly 6 million, has seen mobile access collapse. Banking apps fail. Also, the delivery and taxi apps fail. Messaging services fail while government portals still load. The pattern is clear. When the state fears images, it blocks networks. The goal is to keep uncomfortable facts out of sight. Inside Russia, some cultural institutions have begun to test the edges of that control. In one recent case, a Moscow book festival quietly removed several poets and writers after pro-Kremlin bloggers labeled them anti-Russian. The backlash prompted an editorial in a major newspaper, which argued that in a country where almost everything is prohibited, at least a little should be permitted. The writer noted that these artists had not left Russia and said that basic criticism can be healthy, raising the question of why, even silent, cultural figures were being excluded. Meanwhile, a separate clip adds another charged element. Chinese media, according to multiple reports from that time, briefly carried what was described as a hot mic conversation between Putin and Xi Jinping. The topic was life extension. One of the most unsettling points suggests a path through other people's organs. The clip allegedly vanished within a day. One passage from the same stream of talk has been repeated often and is presented exactly. Biotechnology is continuously developing. Human organs can be continuously transplanted. The longer you live, the younger you become, and you can even achieve immortality. Hello? Some predict that in this century, humans may live to 150 years old. The idea is controversial on its own. It becomes explosive in the hands of authoritarian leaders. There is an obvious objection. Few people want a dictator living to 150. There is also a darker inference. If a ruler seeks extreme longevity, the search itself signals fear of decline. At the same time, the domestic war picture amplifies that fear. A Z-aligned propagandist discussed the battle for a city he called Pocrs. He compared it to the earlier fight for Bakhmut. He said the losses were comparable, and for Bakhmut, he put deaths at about 40 to 50,000. Those are his numbers. The populations of these cities before the war were roughly 60,000 each. The arithmetic is brutal by his own account. For two small cities, total Russian deaths might reach 80,000 to 100,000 by his own logic. The point lands with a moral sting. I repeat, Russia killed them. He adds that these are not Ukrainian kills in a simple tally sense. They are the result of Russia's own decisions. The comparison with Nazi losses in occupied Europe during World War II is used to shock. That comparison says more Russians died for these two small cities than Germans died during the occupations of Norway, France, and Poland. The scale is meant to force a pause. For what strategic gain and what kind of victory requires losses on this scale and a blackout at home? Information warfare is active on the battlefield. A recent viral video on Western platforms claiming to show Ukrainian soldiers surrendering was proven synthetic by an AI tool watermark. The speech, "We are surrendering. We are unarmed. Please don't shoot. Russians, please forgive us. We want to live. We've realized that all of this was in vain. We have no reason to be here. People of Russia, forgive us," was clearly designed to damage morale. Despite the watermark exposing it as a fake, the clip still garnered tens of thousands of views and was repeated as real on platforms like X, demonstrating that a cheap fake can still influence public conversation with wide distribution and low attention. Recent footage from the front line shows Russian soldiers surrendering to Ukrainian units, exemplified by 8 Russians in custody in early November. Commentary with this footage explains the incentive. Russian soldiers surrender because they expect humane treatment, processing, prison, and provisions, rather than death or abuse. In contrast, Ukrainians fight harder because they believe capture by Russians means murder. This field-level dynamic shows that treating prisoners humanely increases enemy surrenders, reducing attrition, proving the practical and ethical value of the policy. Together, these threads outline a cause and effect chain. Images raise questions. Questions invite control. Control prompts more questions. Close-ups of hands spark medical rumors. Heavily edited strongman footage looks artificial. The state responds by restricting what citizens can see and share. That response forces daily friction. When a banking app does not open, the war is not far away. When a courier cannot find a route, the war is not far away. When a taxi app errors out, the war is not far away. Connectivity is now a political instrument. Turning it off is a political choice. Within this broader chain, there is also a pattern to watch in official videos. If future appearances avoid showing hands altogether, the edit will speak for itself. If hands appear in frame but remain rigid while the rest of the body moves, the suspicion of AI smoothing will grow. If a live, unedited event shows swelling again, the health questions will return. Each path has a cost. Over-control looks like fear. Under control reveals what control tried to hide. Both outcomes undermine a myth of invulnerability. AI forgeries will get better. The obvious watermarks will vanish. Cheap models will improve output coherence and lip sync. That places more weight on platform friction and viewer literacy. 2 simple tests can help viewers. Check whether the audio track matches known accents and mic placement, and whether the sound fits the setting. Look for continuity errors in shadows and clothing folds when heads turn. These are imperfect checks. They are better than nothing. In wartime, forgers count on speed, slow the view, and the trick often shows. Parallel to concerns over forgeries, casualty talk will also widen. Official numbers are scarce and contested. Propagandists cite high counts when it suits a particular narrative of sacrifice or inevitability. Independent monitors rely on public records and satellite imagery. Neither method is neat, but even the propagandists' figures in the Bakhmut comparison are staggering. If an advocate of the war admits 40,000 to 50,000 dead in a single urban battle, the scale of the human cost can no longer be hidden behind euphemisms. It arrives in the math. Internet control remains the most immediate pressure point inside Russia. A single region's shutdown until year's end sets a template. Messaging platforms that enable protest or documentation can be degraded without public notice. Outages can be blamed on maintenance or security. They learn that reality is now curated. In St. Petersburg, reports point to precisely this pattern. Government pages load, banks stall, deliveries stall, taxis stall. That is not a network failure, that is a policy choice. A separate line of speculation ties health and governance choices together. If a leader is ill, the circle of trusted aides tightens. Decisions concentrate. Risk tolerance shrinks at home, but stretches abroad. The hand edits say one thing. The body is now a political message. The blackouts say another. Information is now a battlefield. The two are linked by fear of visible decline. When a system's legitimacy rests on one image, the camera becomes a threat. When the camera becomes a threat, the router becomes a weapon. The longevity talk recorded in the Chinese clip frames power as a race against time. It suggests that technology might keep a ruler in place beyond the normal span. Biotechnology is continuously developing. Human organs can be continuously transplanted. The longer you live, the younger you become, and you can even achieve immortality. Some predict that in this century, humans may live to 150 years old. But time defeats every ruler. The point of secrecy is to hide the clock. The point of censorship is to smash it. This is the current picture without filters. Damaged hands, edited footage, shutdown networks, AI propaganda, and a war that keeps pushing its way into everyday life inside Russia. Hands that draw attention because they look wrong. The footage looks uncanny because the hands do not move. A fresh meeting where swollen veins show. Claims of serious illness that remain unconfirmed. AI propaganda that still slips through, but also surrenders, that show who is actually laying down arms. Casualty numbers that appall, even when cited by pro-war voices. A life extension conversation that sits uneasily next to a grinding war no technology can beautify. Will the censorship deepen until only state pages remain usable in Russia's biggest cities? And will the effort to hide the decline backfire as viewers scrutinize every frame for what the frame tries to omit? No one knows which arrives first, a fuller blackout or a fuller view. Control tries to darken the room. The reality of war keeps turning on lights.